Story 1. A Navy SEAL's Midnight Whisper. In the crucible of darkness, where shadows played tricks on the bravest of men, I found myself walking the path less trodden, burdened with memories etched deeper than the grooves on my Navy SEAL dog tags. From the abyss of combat to this, guardian of souls resting in a graveyard, nestled in a forgotten corner, where nature had reclaimed her territory, ensconcing it in thick, almost sentient foliage. It was a surreal downgrade, but sometimes even the fiercest warriors found themselves standing watch over the silent testimonies of lives once vibrant. These nocturnal walks were characterized by a tangible quietude, a still canvas that bore the imprints of countless stories held within the confines of the graves. It was a duty that stretched into the wee hours, ending only when my successor would arrive at 4 a.m, as the first tendrils of dawn reached through the darkness. With the moon as my companion, I meandered through the rows of old headstones, their inscriptions whispering tales of yesteryears into the night. In this sacred place, technology was an unwelcome guest, hence mobile phones were forbidden, leaving me to contemplate the etched epitaphs that bore witness to lives once lived in the fragile glow of my flashlight. On that peculiar night, the soft harmonies of a woman's humming pierced the usual stillness, weaving a surreal tapestry of sound that felt strangely dissonant in the tranquil graveyard. The melody, both comforting and eerie, hinted at a sorrow that had transcended time, filling the night air with a melancholy resonance that beckoned me towards its source. Driven by an inexplicable need to unearth the mystery behind the humming, my steps found purpose as they led me through a dense barrier of ancient trees, silent witnesses to the passage of time. Their branches reached out like gnarled fingers, scratching and clawing at my skin in a desperate attempt to impart ancient secrets as I passed. Emerging from the foliage, I realized the mellifluous humming had ceased, leaving behind a void that echoed with the whispers of the forest. Drawn to one of the aged structures that stood as silent sentinels near the woods, I could distinctly hear an unsettling buzzing emanating from within its walls. A place not visited before, it seemed to house memories rather than remains, perhaps an ode to veterans who had once walked the same paths I had. The darkness within held an icy embrace, chilling my very marrow as I ventured further. A symphony of buzzes enveloped me, sounds that seemed to reverberate from the very foundations of the building. The wooden flooring revealed curious gaps, holes that held the promise of secrets buried deep within the bowels of the structure. Every fiber of my being screamed at the unearthly resonance that seemed to emanate from below. Cautiously, I positioned my phone to cast beams of artificial light into one of the holes, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. Bending down, one eye squeezed shut, I peered into another opening, half expecting an empty void to greet me. But the reality was far more bone-chilling. A face, timeless and ethereal, gazed back with an agony so palpable, I could almost hear her silent screams. In that fleeting connection, an eternity of sorrow and longing flowed between us before she vanished, leaving nothing but an echoing silence in her wake. My heart thundered a frantic beat as I stumbled backward, an unholy scream escaping my throat. Sprinting towards the parking lot, I summoned my relief urgently, desperation lacing my voice. Despite his evident skepticism, he accompanied me back to the haunting structure, if only to calm my frazzled nerves. Together, we explored the void beneath the floor, a flashlight revealing nothing but darkness and damp earth. I could see the disbelief in his eyes, yet a part of me clung to the inexplicable event, unable to dismiss it as a mere figment of my imagination. As the sky lightened, heralding the approach of dawn, I found myself grappling with the possibility that I had glimpsed into another realm, where spirits lingered, tethered by untold stories and unreleased grief. My fellow soldiers had often spoken in hushed tones of encounters with the supernatural, inexplicable experiences that defied logic. As I left that graveyard, the haunting image of the woman seared into my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between the realms of the living and the dead, I had connected with a spirit caught in the echoes of time. Every night thereafter, as the world around me slept, I would stand vigil, a lone sentinel amidst the headstones, listening for the song of the woman in the graveyard, a melody woven from threads of sorrow and longing, forever imprinted in the tapestry of the night. Story 2. Voices from the Void. a Vietnam War memoir. In the quietude that often nestled in the golden years of his life, my father finally chose to open up about a segment of his youth that had remained ensconced in shadows, locked away within the labyrinthine corridors of his mind. In the early 60s, from 1960 to 1962, to be precise, he had been a young soldier, a fragment in the massive machine that was the Vietnam War. It was a chapter of his life that he had held close to his chest, unwilling to release it into the open, fearing perhaps the revival of the monsters that lurked within those memories. But as the autumn of his life approached, time seemed to have softened the edges of those monstrous memories, allowing him a certain freedom, a certain nonchalance, to let others glimpse into that darkness. He made me the custodian of this narrative, a narrative that he had spun only a handful of times, each recounting revealing a tad more detail, a tad more horror, a little more of the darkness that had followed him home. In those harrowing times, my father was not just a soldier, but a tunnel rat, one of those daring souls who ventured into the bowels of the earth, traversing the veins and arteries of a living, breathing hell. The underground tunnels of Vietnam were no place for the faint-hearted. Crawling through those narrow, suffocating passages, each heartbeat was a cacophony, echoing the symphony of death that played ceaselessly in those depths. It was a place where silence held conversations with the soldiers, where darkness became their intimate companion, and every moment held the promise of a swift, abrupt end. During one of those perilous underground sojourns, my father and his two comrades found themselves pulled into a narrative that seemed to transcend the boundaries of the human experience. Far within the confines of those silent tunnels, the eerie cries of a woman began to resonate, growing increasingly frantic and clear as they delved deeper into the darkness. It seemed as though the very walls of the tunnel were absorbing her pain, her fear, broadcasting it in a macabre symphony that echoed in the suffocating darkness. It pulled them in, the possibility of a prisoner, a hostage perhaps, fueling their resolve, hastening their pace. They found themselves in a small alcove, a break in the oppressive narrowness where they could almost stand. A lantern cast eerie shadows over the remnants of human habitation. A couple of broken chairs, a table, and a safe box that held mysteries within its metallic belly. But the plaintive cries had ceased, replaced by an odor so vile, so saturated with death, that it seemed to seep into their very pores. Driven by duty and an ever-growing dread, they pressed further into the tunnel's gullet, until they reached its dark heart. It was a chamber of nightmares, a place where humanity met an end so brutal, so incomprehensible, that my father to this day refuses to paint it in words. The mutilated remains spoke of a violence that was primal, beastly, as if some creature from the bowels of hell had feasted upon flesh and bone. Amongst the victims was a woman, her final screams forever etched into the very stone that surrounded them. And then, as if mocking their horror, her cries began anew, echoing from the darkness they had just escaped. Fear, pure and primal, gripped them as they realized the impossibility of what they were hearing. There was no space, no corner left unexplored in that tunnel of death. Yet her screams rang clear, as if carried by the wind from some infernal realm. My father could feel the cold breath of the darkness on his neck, an unseen presence chasing them as they retreated, the cries of the woman an unholy chorus urging it onwards. With hearts pounding in rhythm with their hurried footsteps, they emerged into the harsh light of day, a flag marking their passage, a silent testament to the hell they had glimpsed. Most tunnels in that forsaken place bore connections, a network of darkness that spanned the bowels of Vietnam, but this one was different, a dead end in the most literal sense. A brief, horrifying journey into a darkness that defied explanation, that challenged their very understanding of the world. Even now, as my father navigates through his 80s, that memory stands as a sentinel in his mind, a grim reminder of the darkest corners of human experience, a nightmarish journey into a realm where fear and death held dominion, an indelible mark left upon his soul during his 2-year sojourn in the inferno that was Vietnam. Story 3. Air Force Echoes. A Midnight Encounter. In the sweltering humidity of Phoenix, Arizona, I embarked on the rigorous journey of my basic training at Luke Air Force Base. Upon conquering that milestone, I found myself transferred to Shepherd Air Force Base to further sharpen my skills at a technical school. Fresh out of graduation, the universe conspired to send me to the McGuire Air Force Base in the verdant expanses of New Jersey, where I would carve my niche as an aerospace mechanic. The relentless buzz of the neon lights was my sole company as I delved into the night duty, a time where darkness swallowed the base and left only the artificial glow to guide my way. I found myself caught in a relentless cycle where sleep was a scarce luxury, almost as elusive as the daylight that I hardly witnessed. My days morphed into nights, a time where my responsibilities bordered on the monotonous, comprising primarily of hauling bulky plane parts, a symphony of anti-ice valves, igniters, ignition exciters, and a multitude of sensors, an orchestral performance in the silent night, from the dimly lit warehouse to the vibrant flight line. The night had a funny way of stretching time, making each minute feel like an eternity as I engaged in mind-numbing repetitive tasks. While the world slept, I busied myself with casual games on my phone, my little secret in the echoing silence of the warehouse. The time, which felt frozen, was suddenly racing towards the early morning, possibly nearing 4, though I had ceased to keep a stringent track. The darkness was a witness to my solitude as I awaited my colleague, whom we shall refer to as Derek for the sake of our tale, to deliver some essential parts at the flight line. Positioned at the back cargo area of the awaiting aircraft, I found a makeshift seat on a sturdy box, the cold metal seeping through my uniform as I lost myself in the virtual world on my phone screen. However, Derek seemed to be caught in the same time warp that the night seemed to create, his tardiness bordering on worrisome. My patience waned, giving way to anxiety that stirred in my gut, a whirlpool of worry that propelled me to check on him. A series of texts went unnoticed, followed by several calls that reverberated in the emptiness before succumbing to the clinical tone of the voicemail. Just as frustration began to knit its web, my phone vibrated with a call from Derek's number. An unfamiliar voice answered, its timbre resembling a man possibly in the middle phases of his life, caught somewhere between the youthful vigor and the wisdom of old age. He recounted finding the phone lying forsaken on the ground, a silent witness to an untold tale outside the secure confines of the base. A vivid image of Derek flashed before my eyes as I described him to the stranger, the strands of hope growing thinner with his negative response. The urgency left no room for protocols, nudging me to venture outside the base to retrieve what was lost. The stranger directed me to a local hotspot, Nora's Pub, situated in the heart of Cookstown, the nearest settlement to the base. As I maneuvered my car through the desolate roads, a flicker of memory illuminated. The recent jest we shared, a safeguard against the perceived dangers of a sketchy dive bar, where we, in a bout of laughter, decided to share our locations with each other, shielding ourselves from a fictional murder that seemed less fictional with each passing moment. Upon reaching the destined meeting point, a chilling realization dawned upon me. The darkness engulfed the usually bustling place, a void that echoed the uncertainty that clung to the night air. An eerie stillness greeted me, a canvas devoid of any vehicles or signs of life. A quick check on Derek's phone location revealed a blip indicating its presence near the tavern, an unsettling beacon in the deserted landscape. As I stepped into the unsettling quietude, an ominous call from the stranger sent a shiver down my spine, his voice now hushed, carrying undertones of mystery and perhaps malevolence. The whisper hung in the air, a precursor to the unknown as I awaited an encounter under the watchful eyes of the moon, at a place where time stood still, teetering on the edge of darkness and the unknown that lay beyond. In the murky shadows of the early morning, reality seemed to warp, leaving behind an eerie stillness punctuated only by the haunting symphony of the night creatures. My skin prickled with an awareness of the oddity enveloping me, a surreal ambiance where time seemed to elongate, its normal pace skewed by the uncanny events unfolding. A quick glimpse at my phone showed the beacon of Derek's location, now nestled deep within a nearby copse that spanned approximately 200 feet in both length and breadth, a verdant stretch hiding secrets within its depths. As I attempted another call, the expected response greeted me, the sterile void of the voicemail, an echo of the isolation that marked the parking lot. No soul was visible, not a semblance of human presence or the comforting sight of passing vehicles graced the vicinity. My solitude was soon interrupted by sounds alien to the nocturnal chorus, a shuffle that teased the fringe of my perception, eerily reminiscent of footfalls on the damp earth. A figure then emerged, just at the periphery of the dark woods that bordered the lot, half concealed, half revealed, an unsettling visage in the moonlit darkness. His voice, tinged with an unsettling cadence, reached out, a query that bore an undercurrent of dark intentions. His presence, a stark contrast against the serene, moonlit backdrop, sent ripples of fear coursing through me, the primal warning signals flaring with urgency. Despite the mounting dread, I found my voice, a defiant note against the impending darkness, even as my instincts screamed at me to distance myself from the unfolding scenario. As questions exchanged and fears heightened, I found myself seeking refuge in my car, an instinctive drive to flee the undulating wave of danger that seemed to emanate from the figure in the woods. The drive back to the base was a blur, a whirlpool of fears and speculations swirling in the confines of my mind. Upon arrival, I sought out my supervisor, unloading the eerie tale that had unfolded in the secluded lot near Nora's pub. To my astonishment, Derek was with him, his presence a solid anchor in the shifting sands of the night's events. The tale Derek unraveled seemed extracted from a nightmarish canvas, a series of events that echoed the surreal experiences that had enveloped my night. It seemed fate had thrown Derek into an encounter with the unknown, initiated by a seemingly innocuous request from a stranger outside a convenience store that never slept, a beacon in the darkness that had seemingly attracted dubious characters to its fluorescent glow. Naivety and perhaps a shared camaraderie had seen Derek agreeing to the stranger's request, allowing him entry into his vehicle with the belief of shared affiliations with the Air Force. But the journey soon took a dark turn, spiraling into a horrifying episode at the familiar patch of woods that seemed to be the epicenter of the night's eerie events. A battle of wills and strength ensued as the stranger attempted to drag Derek into the depths of the forest, a place where darkness held sway, where untold dangers lurked. But Derek's survival instincts had surged forth in a frenzied struggle, a fight for freedom that saw him utilizing every ounce of strength to free himself from the grasp of the stranger. The car bore witness to the frantic tussle, the open door a testament to the quick escape that had perhaps saved Derek from a fate too horrifying to contemplate. The reunion at the base blossomed into a concerted effort to seek justice, to ensure the darkness that had briefly touched our lives would not find another victim. The local authorities became our allies in the search, converging on Nora's pub, a place now tainted with the eerie events of the night. Sadly, the beacon that was Derek's phone had flickered out, possibly meeting a violent end at the hands of the stranger, a disquieting void in our efforts to locate him. As we recounted our experiences to the officers, a chilling realization dawned, a dark acknowledgement of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, where men with malicious intents sought to prey on the unsuspecting. The quiet filing of the police report belied the undercurrent of fear and tension, a palpable reminder of the fine line that separated safety from the clutches of darkness, where evil intentions threatened to engulf the unwary. The night had revealed the presence of malevolent entities in our midst, individuals whose motives bore the mark of insanity and danger. It was a grim testament to the unpredictable nature of the world, where darkness could suddenly engulf one's life, dragging it into an abyss of fear and uncertainty. A grim reminder of the darkness that coexisted with the mundane, a shadowy realm where peril awaited the unwary, an experience that left an indelible mark on our psyche, forever altering our perception of the night and the secrets it held within its depths.